I mean, this is my third time in Vilnius, and I'm just amazed of the entrepreneurial spirit, the innovation, the creativity that I see here. And I'm going to build on yesterday and that impression and give you my ideas on where we're going when it comes to technology and business, and to put it maybe a bit in a larger context. So, but first, can I just get hands up? I mean, do you guys still rent DVDs, physical DVDs? Anyone? There's two in the back. Do you buy books in a bookstore? Yeah? Actual books, physical? Okay. This is interesting. I tend to call it the TECHSTORM. All the technologies that's approaching us, all the stuff that we see, all the new things, how we relate to DVDs for that sake or something else. And I mean, for me, I'm working as an entrepreneur and technology investor. And of course, as part of that, I need to stay updated on new stuff. New innovations, new gadgets, all that. And of course, I don't rent DVDs anymore. I sometimes buy books. It's usually the big coffee table ones. And I just find it interesting that, I mean, what we saw yesterday, the biohacking thing, to being an early adopter. And of course, for me, I don't, do you have wearables like the Fitbits or stuff like that? Hands up? Yeah. Do you have as many as I have? Because I've tried them all. And what's interesting here is how that changes my behavior. That I actually walk more, I exercise more. And that's the main thing for me. How is technology changing my behavior? And I find it kind of amusing to see that I actually enjoy getting some kind of buzz on my arm here saying, oh, congratulations, you made today's goal. And it's just an algorithm, it's just a small computer, but it creates some kind of satisfaction for me. But of course, this is last year. I mean, today it's of course, implants. Did you do it yesterday? I got it. Hannes that was here yesterday, he's got it, of course. And it's slowly but steadily getting there. I mean, I got home with this Band-Aid, and my wife was just saying, what are you doing now? What's up now? What is this? And I couldn't really explain to her why I had it. I just had to try it. Every once in a while, it works with my hotel door, for example. Sometimes it does not. Sometimes they call security and thinking that I'm some kind of weirdo. But it's interesting to see how technology changes my behavior. But of course, when it comes to being an early adopter, drones, I use a drone to walk my dog, of course. I mean, that's the only reasonable early adopter way to use it. Virtual reality, well, for me, I stay in touch with my kids when I'm out traveling. And it's another thing when it comes to being an early adopter. It doesn't really work as it is said to work. I mean, my 4-year-old here, she's the only one in the family that can actually use this without getting motion sickness. So we're steadily getting there. It's interesting, but we have a lot more to learn about how to use it, how to get the best killer applications, and also how it is becoming a part of our daily lives. So, but just to take you back, because there's a lot in history that we can understand from technology. There was an essay written 140 years ago in Mrs. Stevens' New Monthly, saying something like that the world is too big and too fast, there's too much doing, too many wars, crimes, casualties, excitements and marvels, and that science empties its discoveries upon you so fast that you're out of breath trying to keep run of them. Human nature can endure so much, things must hold up a while. And that was 150 years ago that we felt overwhelmed by technology. But it's the same thing today. We feel that we can never catch up really with the new things, the new gadgets, all this information flow, the Facebook feeds, all that. And looking back, we've had a couple of 100 years of really interesting innovations going on. Really amazing stuff that has been created. And of course, I mean, we got all these things. Some of them are working, some of them are not. And what's interesting here is that we've actually seen an immense development in new technologies. And it doesn't really matter if it was a steam engine, if it was electricity, or the computer. All these things got accepted into society in roughly the same way. I mean, to start, we have an experimentation phase. And the example here is with a car. The first cars, they were not that good. They were noisy, polluting, they were expensive, and they were not faster than a horse and carriage. It was just a different way to go from A to B. Then the cars got a bit better. We got wider streets. Relatively speaking, they got cheaper, faster, less polluting. And we actually started to change our behavior by going to meetings in other towns, visiting relatives far away. So it was sort of an expansion phase. The third phase, when a technology really transforms society, and this is from the US in the 1950s, we'll actually see suburbs, shopping malls, drive-in cinemas, things that could never exist without the car being everywhere, more or less. And so independently of what kind of technology it is, all these new things, they get accepted into society in the same way. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. And then you wonder, what is this good for? Why should I know this? And the challenge for us as individuals, for society, and also if you run a business, is that you need to try to find the right timing. When you should adopt a new technology, when you should leave an old technology behind, and also when it's time to take it into your life or into your business. When it comes to the listening to music, for example, from the phonograph to the smartphones we have now, each and every step you have to take a decision to leave an existing structure, get rid of your CDs, you rip them to your hard drive, whatever. And all this changes the way we behave, the way we listen to music, and suddenly everyone is walking around with white earbuds in their ears. And that's kind of interesting. And of course, when it comes to the transformational phase of information technology, the smartphone is maybe the crown here, the gadget that rules them all, where we can communicate with anyone, in any way, everywhere. We have instant access to a lot of information, as long as we have a good data connection. And of course, this has changed us immensely. I mean, we commute in the morning, you see this, everyone face down in their phones. We're isolated. But it's actually nothing new. I mean, it was the same thing 50, 60, 70 years ago when people were going to work. I mean, you sort of want that solitary thing in the morning when you commute. So now that IT actually is a very mature technology, lots of interesting things going on. We see that here yesterday and today. But what's interesting also is that it's a mature technology. It's a mature enabling technology. And if we look back in history, we see that we have a number of waves of technologies that are coming and that are creating new innovations. So the next emerging technology, the next enabling technology that we see can be summarized in what we call miniaturization. And miniaturization is where we can actually interact on the atomic level, on the virus level, on DNA level, with very, very high precision. And very popularly speaking, this is called the bang technologies. And bang, that's for bits, as in IT, atoms, as in nanotechnology in the physical world, N as in neurons, our understanding of the human brain, G as in genes, biotechnology, DNA, genetics, and pharmaceuticals. And what's interesting here is the combination, the cross-pollination between these disciplines. What we see when you combine IT and neurotechnology, for example. And the other interesting part here is that we also see an exponential development. We've seen it in IT for several years. We see it in our understanding of the human brain. We see it in genetics and the development of DNA mapping and how we interact with DNA on an atomic level. And when it comes to IT and this There's exponential development. Just one very good example from the gaming industry. This is Doom, the first and latest versions of Doom. How you see the rendering and what has actually happened since the 1990s in how graphics are developing in that sense. So that's a bit of a background. And as I said, I have a background as an entrepreneur, as a very early stage technology investor. A couple of years ago, I got really fed up with the more administrative parts of being an investor. All the meetings you have with lawyers and bankers and board of directors, and not actually working with innovation, with the people, with the products, with the customers. So I started saying no to meetings, cleared my schedule, and embarked on a sort of a mental journey trying to understand where we are and where technology is taking us. And as part of that, I joined a think tank in Washington, D.C. called TechCast. We're a bit more than 100 people scattered around the world that looks at new technologies, where technologies are taking us, and what the impact will be. So I share my time between looking into the future and also working with very early stage investments still. But from TechCast, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of what we see in the future and how we think that new technologies will be accepted into society. So we start with IT. I mean, in 1997, Garry Kasparov got beaten by IBM's Deep Blue in a chess game. No rematch. IBM didn't see that as a good reason for accepting that. And Kasparov was, of course, furious, and he's now pursuing other careers, so to speak. And then in 2011, IBM beat the two grandmasters of Jeopardy, actually being able to understand the question or the answer, as it is in this game. Go through 200 million pages of information and come up with the right answer within fractions of a second. And then just a couple of months ago, no, this was 2 years ago, when DeepMind, a UK-based company, put their machine intelligence or soft AI in front of space invaders with one instruction, just to maximize the number in the corner. And 8 hours later, this AI was the best in the world, Space Invaders. Really simple game, but still. Then a couple of months ago, DeepMind, together with Google, beat the world champion in Go. Now, for the first time, you started seeing some kind of intuition. The AI, this machine intelligence, doing moves that humans, experts, couldn't really understand. Then it starts to get interesting. And from Google, from IBM, other companies, so that we can log in and use their artificial intelligence and machine learning resources for cognitive computing, for example. And when it comes to IT, also IBM just yesterday launched that they open up their API for their 5-qubit quantum computer. Not as simple as downloading an app from the App Store, of course, but it's very interesting that they start seeing early applications, want to open up their framework for other people to take a look at this and see what they can do. And of course, new advances in information technology, some emerging aspects of artificial intelligence, quantum computing, if it is a true quantum computer, we don't know that. All these things will affect us in many different ways. And it will, of course, affect the labor market. Studies show that maybe 50% of all occupations will render obsolete in the coming decades. And that will definitely change a number of quite high-profile occupations that you have today. Take journalism, for example, where today you can have software gathering information on the web, writing an article, publishing that article without any human interaction. And you as a reader can't tell the difference. Then you have other computers reading that article, analyzing the information, and trading on the stock market using that. No human interaction whatsoever. We have advanced systems working in the medical field, where you have, IBM, for example, have their Dr. Watson system that can actually diagnose cancer with better accuracy than a human doctor. And of course, that's interesting for me as a patient. The combination of a human doctor with the experience and the empathy, hopefully, and a computer system that can give a second opinion and also has the ability to read all these medical journals and articles that's being published each and every year. Something that a human can never have time to do. So the combination man-machine is, of course, really interesting. And then my favorite, the lawyers. Any lawyers in the audience? Good. Because it's like that. I mean, being an early stage investor and entrepreneur, I mean, you meet lawyers all the time. And now you start to see systems that can actually analyze large amounts of written text, prepare cases, prepare for negotiations, and they can actually do it faster, with less errors, 24/7, and hopefully, although it's a computer, with a lot more empathy than a lawyer can. And, of course, it's a bit cheaper as well. And this is, when I meet with lawyers and law firms today discussing the future, most of them are ignorant about this. But there was a study just a couple of weeks ago saying that 1/3 of all law professions will disappear in the next 10 years. So they're in for a massive change in this, of course. But we have all these different occupations today that will disappear. But then, of course, we have new ones coming. Some that we know of, some that we don't know of, and we'll definitely see all these different new occupations that are somewhat strange, weird. We don't really know what it is, but it will give us a sense of where we're heading as humanity, as society, actually. And I'm not saying that these are the occupations that we will have in the future. What I do know, though, is that we will see a whole lot of new ways of interaction, of working, and independently of what kind of occupation you decide to in the future. I think that very basic human traits like social interaction, empathy, creativity, fantasy, these things that are really, really hard to copy in a computer, as of today that is, those things will be very, very crucial for anyone that wants to make a career or find something interesting to do in the future. Because society will change based on the digitalization and the automation of mundane, repetitive, cognitive tasks as well. So that's IT. Lots of things happening there. And when it comes, we can continue to the physical world. We got new advances in new materials, in nanotechnology, for example. But a more telling example right now is what's happening in robotics. I mean, we've had robots around in popular culture for the past 100 years. We've had industrial robots in any manufacturing plant for the past 50, 60 years. And that is advancing. What's happening now is that we combine advanced information technology with advanced sensors, new materials, and we actually get robots that can play ping pong and win against the former world champion. Really, really amazing speed in this robot. We have robots that can actually walk in difficult terrain, carry big workloads, by only sensors as following this human walking in front of it. And now I feel that, although I'm a great advocate for technology and all that, I feel this is a bit spooky. I mean, imagine having this one in your backyard when the kids are out playing. It's a bit strange. It makes me a bit uneasy, although it's fascinating. The same with robots that can walk like a human. Very good, very impressive from a technology perspective, but also a bit scary, isn't it? And imagine the engineers coming to the communications department saying, guys, we got this new revolutionary robot that can walk like a human. And the PR people just say, oh, good. Post it on YouTube, but make it look good. And then they go back to the lab. They put on a pair of boots, a uniform, and a gas mask, just not to scare people. And that is just plain wrong. I mean, as someone working with innovation and technology, you have a responsibility to actually promote it in the best way possible. Try to make people understand that technology is for the good of mankind and not threatening like this. But of course, there are cute robots. I mean, this is the size of a deer. Not that intimidating at all. And also very good engineering, very stable on this icy parking lot. But you can't do like this. I mean, what is he thinking? And actually, when they posted this on YouTube, there were Facebook groups started protecting this poor little robot from humans. Which is kind of weird, isn't it? How we relate to technology, how we relate to robots. And, I mean, if you look closely, he actually sort of laughs when he's doing it. Probably because he's proud of the achievement of this robot, but still. And, I mean, same company, this is Boston Robotics, Boston Dynamics. They are doing a really good job when it comes to robots. But you have this guy again. It's the same guy. He's like the robot bully. I don't know what he's thinking. But he's actually harassing this poor robot. And, I mean, it gets worse. It gets worse. This is, of course, ways of showing that the robot is performing well and then it's doing good. But just for Hannah's analogy yesterday, I mean, I'm a great fan of science fiction. And I know what will happen when we introduce the concept of violence to our friends, the robots. And here's the Arnold Schwarzenegger slide for today. And it is like that. They will definitely come back and they will hunt us down indefinitely. We have no chance of getting away. So we should treat technology, robotics, artificial intelligence the way it's supposed to be treated. We should think for ourselves and have an idea where we want technology to take us. This company, DeepMind with the Go and Space Invaders, a lot of other robotics and artificial intelligence companies and biotechnology, genetics companies are today owned by Google. So we're safe. We're safe. I mean, Google are the don't be evil company. And Google are really doing good, helping us to sort through information and understand the digital world. And they're on our side, as long as we click on their ads, of course. But what's interesting here is that Google, after acquiring all these technologies and companies, they realized that they sit on a lot of interesting stuff. So they formed an ethics committee, trying to understand where technology is taking us, how we should use technology in the best way possible. And that's comforting, definitely. It's good. I mean, and then you have two choices. You can either say that, fine, smartest people in the world, discussing ethics around technology, preparing us for the future. I like that. I can just sit back, relax, open another beer, watch TV, whatever. Or I can realize that the smartest people in the world feel that they need to have some kind of ethics perspective on technology. Then maybe it's my responsibility to also understand where I want technology to take us. How I should form my technological destiny. For me as an individual, for my company, for society as a whole. Because I don't think that, although the deepest respect for Google, but I don't think that you should let corporations, politicians or scientists, only them deciding where we should take technology. I think it's a lot up to us to take that responsibility, stay informed, and have our own opinion about what we want technology to do for us. Because in the future, technology will be able to do a whole lot more than we today feel is acceptable. So, IT, robotics, come to visualization. And of course, you've seen the prototypes of VR, where people are going on the roller coasters. And this is another thing that we actually see that this is a technology in its infancy. We're not really prepared for this, are we? It's amazing if you tried it, but as this guy, I mean, it's hard for the mind to understand what is happening actually. It's a bit scary. But what's interesting also is that, I mean, you have virtual reality. What's also coming out now is the forms of augmented reality, where you superimpose visual images on your surroundings. And this is a HoloLens from Microsoft. Also really, really amazing when you try it on. And what's interesting here is that, I mean, it has applications in lots of areas. In 3D design, in gaming, in science as this. But what's also cool is that eventually using these, when they get smaller, lighter, when they improve, you will not need an actual screen on your phone. You will superimpose this on whatever surface you have. So that will definitely change our behavior. It will change the way we interact with technology, and it will change the way that we actually work with technology. It will change our everyday lives. And again, combining these different technologies with things like this. Combining IT, advanced sensors, machine learning, computers and robots understanding of their surroundings, and robotics, and actually putting wheels on it, we get an autonomous car. Of course, I'm from Sweden. Of course, I present a Volvo, although Volvo is Chinese nowadays, but still. And what's interesting here is that the first time I saw this film, I realized that it's nothing strange. It's like this today. When you commute to work, you see people in their cars drinking coffee, texting, writing notes. The same thing like this. There's no change, nothing different. The only difference is that with the autonomous driving features, you will actually be able to do this without causing any accidents. Because there are 2 million car accidents on the roads every year in the world. 1.8 million of those are caused by human errors. So we will, in the long run, be able to eliminate those, which is amazing, actually. And Volvo has, as the first car manufacturer, said that if you use an autonomous system from Volvo, the way it's supposed to be used, they will take the responsibility for any damages, any accidents that happens. And they have a goal saying that in 4 years, no one should die in a Volvo, which is also amazing when it comes from a safety perspective. And then, if you take it further, this will change the way we think of transportation. This will change the way we build cities. We won't need as many parking lots anymore. We won't need transportation, public transportation that way. It will be more flexible, more individually connected in that sense. And also, for example, take my kids, 4, 8, and 10 years old. I don't think they will have licenses when they grow up. Why should they? I'll just order a transport through an app. It'll come in a couple of minutes. And this is another thing that will definitely change the way we actually live and behave. And also, already today, you have experiments with road trains where you can drastically lower the fuel consumption by stacking the trucks tighter on the roads. So, continue. Look at neuroscience. As I said, I'm a great fan of science fiction, and this is from The Matrix. It's a film that came out in 1999. And if you haven't seen it, it's a movie about us living in a computer simulation. And we learn new things by hooking up to a mainframe computer and downloading information and knowledge. And we can actually do this today. This is an experiment where you do some genetic modification of a rat's brain, photonics implant, and then with fiber optics, you can implant false memories. And then you can take them away. Really simple. Amazing what we understand about the brain here. But then you think it's a rat. Very limited intellect, small brain, actually nothing to worry about. Take it further, we can totally control, for example, a cockroach. This is a great weekend project. You just buy a small kit on the web. You take off the antennas, connect it to a small computer that you glue on the back, and then you can control this cockroach with your iPhone. Why not? Or why, you could say. I have a big problem explaining this to my kids, saying, well, it's okay, sort of okay with a cockroach, but don't try it with a dog, okay? And it's amazing that we actually understand, also in a small animal, how this works. But this is, from an ethical perspective, a disaster. Of course we shouldn't do this. But then again, if we use the same technology put some microphones on, and send out the cockroach in a disaster area where there's been an earthquake, for example, trying to find people that are stuck under collapsed buildings. Maybe then it's a good idea. I don't know, it's up to you. But we need to discuss and have an opinion about where we want technology to take us. But then again, the understanding of the rat's brain, understanding of a cockroach and how we can control these, we can take a step further and actually sort of understand how this happens in a human. It was just a month ago, a study came out where they monitored the brain waves of fighter pilots and recorded it. And then they took that recording and transferred it to the mind of amateurs. So in a flight simulator, these amateurs, after getting the feedback from the brain waves of the fighter pilots, they improved their capabilities in this flight simulator by 35%. Meaning that we can actually take information, extract it from the brain of an expert and transfer it to the brain of an amateur. That's kind of cool, isn't it? I mean, take Skype, for example. They are working on immediate language translation when you make a Skype call. Good. But in this case, I might as well just learn Chinese by downloading this app into my brain instead. There's a whole lot of different ways that we potentially in the future can use this if we get it to work. And again, combined, IT, sensors, robotics, our understanding of the human brain. Of course, one very good thing coming out of this, advanced prosthetics. We saw some interesting concepts yesterday, and this is maybe taking it a bit further. This guy, he lost both his arms 50 years ago in an accident. So he's been living with assistance for his whole life. And what he has here are 2 prototypes, $500,000 each. There's 10 of them in the world. And they are connected to his nervous system. And you can see that when he tries to learn to use them, that he actually uses his mind. He's very, very concentrated. And it looks a bit like an infant trying to learn to use his or her hands the first time. And it's amazing that just after a short while, he can actually function in that sense. And of course, for this man to get this, it's a total game changer for him. I mean, he gets his life back, actually. I mean, being able to drink for the first time in his life in 50 years, of course, it changes his life indefinitely. And for me, this is like one of the best examples of how new technology is used to create something better for humanity, definitely. So if we continue, biotechnology, genetics. 15 years ago, mapping the human genome took 5 years and cost $300 million. Today, you can do it in 24 hours, cost you $1,000. Or you can even order a kit online like this. It's $99. You send in a sample, then mail going back and forth. You get a code, and you can get not all a full genetic scan, but you log in and you get some basic understanding of your genetic profile. You get your genetic ancestry, how you react to certain medications, some inherited conditions. Very useful when discussing your body or your illness, whatever it is, with a doctor. And this is going to be standard, more or less, in the future. It's getting cheaper and cheaper. The exponential increase in availability of kits like this is amazing. And maybe you know, I mean, I kind of like this. I think these things are a bit fun. So I got a kit like this for my wife for Christmas. And I thought it was a good idea. My wife didn't really appreciate the gift, I should say. I mean, it was 20 years ago we met. And she said, I would have wanted this in 1995 when we met, to see what kind of guy you were. Fine. But the technology wasn't there. Or at least it was really expensive. So, but 2 things came out of this. The first is that from now on she buys all her presents herself, which makes life a lot easier for me. But the most interesting thing is, of course, the discussion we had around the dinner table afterwards. What do I want to know about myself? Do I want to know everything? Well, probably not, because it's really, really hard to grasp all that information about your genetic profile. You probably want to know the stuff that you can do something about. If you have an increased risk of heart disease, then maybe you start exercising, you change your diet, you quit smoking, things like that. But actually when they do research on how we react to this information, it's not necessarily that people change their behavior. It's just a pure notion that you could change your behavior and then change your odds for getting this disease. The pure notion that you actually feel somewhat that you are in charge, that is the interesting part of this. But that is, of course, essential. It's going to be a very essential part of our medical interactions in the future, definitely. And of course, today, when it comes to the ethical side of it, today you can clone your dog in Korea for $100,000. Good idea. In China, they are building the largest cloning factory in the world with an output of 1 million cows in a couple of years. Surely it's a good idea. I don't know about you, but when it comes to food, I want the healthy stuff. And this Chinese company, they will have to convince me that this is the healthy stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's better in one way, some way that I don't understand. But what's interesting here is, of course, the pure idea that we actually can clone cows or cats or dogs. We cloned the sheep Dolly, 15 years ago? And of course we can clone humans if we just try hard. And then again, coming back to the fact, do we think that that is a good idea? We should not let scientists or companies decide that. We need to take an active part in that discussion. Everyone has to do that. We have to understand where technology is taking us and form our own opinion based on that. And of course, when it comes to genetics, DNA, and the connection back to information technology, scientists are looking now on ways to actually store information in this. And this has just come out recently. 1 gram of DNA can store tremendous amounts of information, like thousands of smartphones, that information in 1 gram of DNA. So we're going to see some interesting developments and combinations between disciplines there as well. And of course, when it comes to human cloning, I'm not sure we want to clone everyone, of course. Does anyone want to be cloned? Do you want to be cloned? I don't know. I sure want to live long. I mean, I'm fueled by curiosity. I think everything that happens in the world today is really interesting. So I want to be part of that for a long time. And maybe cloning is a good way to be in 2 places at the same time. I don't know. But again, we need to decide that what we want technology to do. And of course, if you feel that this is horrible or scary or anything, you can of course stick your head in the sand. You don't have to take part of this. You don't have to be part of this development. It's okay to shut off. It's okay to go analog again. But the thing is that independently of what you do, development, progress will continue. And I don't think you should be afraid of the new technologies that are coming. I think you should be afraid of getting stuck in the old ones. That's a real challenge, and that's a real danger when it comes to this. And again, when it comes to DNA and cloning, it's a fact that we actually will see in the future ways of interacting, understanding, and changing the genetic traits of our unborn kids. And I'm not sure we want to go down that path. So, I mean, for me, as an entrepreneur, an early stage investor, each and every day I try to understand what technology is taking us and how that is changing my business. So, last year I wrote a book about this, trying to understand and then try to visualize how I am thinking about new technologies and the business perspective of it. And for me, it's a 3-way process, where the first step is to actually analyze technologies, to understand what new technologies are out there, and especially, most importantly, the timing perspective of that technology. How do I want when can I see that this technology breaks through? And just to give you one example. This is a friend of mine, Martin. In 2007, I was affiliated to a large venture capital company. And Martin, an old college friend of mine, came to me and said, Nicklas, I got this great idea in music. This way we can do this in a new way. Get away with the pirating and the downloads and all the illegal stuff and actually create something new. I was curious, intrigued. We looked at it. Probably didn't really understand what this was all about. And then politely said no to this investment. Of course, it was, in that perspective then, it was a good decision. Today, I don't know if you know, there's a Swedish company called Spotify. It's one of the largest music companies in the world today. They have, I don't know, 100 million users. Last year, they had a valuation of $8 billion. And we said no to that. It's not my proudest moment as an investor. And I don't want to be greedy, but I would have been okay with just a small part of that going forward. But essentially, what's interesting here is that what we missed, what they saw in Spotify, is that they actually realized that we were going from desktop to laptop to mobile devices. We were not downloading music and playing it on our computers. We would be able to stream music, have it in the cloud, and use it on our smartphones. This was before we had 3G or 4G networks. This was before we had advanced data analytics that could actually give us information on new music based on our preferences. So all these things they knew in 2006, 2007, when they started the company. And it was amazing the timing perspective that they saw in technology and business. The second step is to assess the business implications. From an industry perspective, from a customer perspective, from a company perspective, how will this change the way we work, the way the industry works? Will we see new competition? Will our competitors change in that sense? Will our customers demand new things from us? Will they see different ways of interacting? And that is really tricky. For Spotify, for example, they also not only introduced new technologies, they introduced a whole new business model with subscription instead of actually buying music. And that's a tremendous thing to do when you're a small startup to begin with. The third part of this is to adapt to this new uncertainty. When you see new technologies, when you sort of understand how your business is affected by this, you have an uncertainty you need to relate to. And in that sense, there are two ways to relate to uncertainty. You can be the one trying to shape your industry or your future, like Spotify did, like many large corporations in theory have the ability to do since they have all these resources. And then, if you're a small company, many of my investments, my portfolio companies, we don't have that big resources. So we're instead the ones trying to adapt to the changes in the market, trying to be agile, flexible, trying to listen in on where the industry is moving, what the customers want, etc. There are two ways to relate to that uncertainty. So again, to summarize, don't let scientists, politicians, or corporations decide where technology is taking us. Be in charge of your own technological destiny, and don't be afraid of the new things. Be afraid of getting stuck in the old ones. And then also, if you're not confused after this, you haven't really paid attention, okay? If you're not curious about new things, technology, and business development after this, you haven't really understood what I meant. But if you're not optimistic about the future, about technology, then I failed. Because I really, really do believe that technology is part of the solution going forward, taking care of a lot of the challenges we have on an individual level, but also as society as a whole. So thank you for your time. I'm here. If there's anything, please connect, talk to me, get back to me. I'll check the Twitter feed afterwards and see what we have there. So thank you, and have a good day.